Hello, everybody. This is Vince and Sherry from Pastor Life. So glad that you've tuned in to be a part of our channel today. Got a very important question for you. What is the sin Christians brag about? Most of the time, we don't want to let people know if we got a particular pet sin. But there is one sin that unfortunately we will brag about it. We can do it on a Wednesday night Bible study. We can stand up in church and we can shout it from the mountaintops. What is the sin that Christians brag about? Honey?
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go.
Worry. Worry is a sin that Christians brag about. You said, well, Vince, how can that be? I thought worrying meant that you were really, really concerned about something to the point that it just lays on your heart. And then you tell other people, I have this worry, I have this concern. There's just one thing about that. It's a sin, according to what Jesus said. Now, honey, you said something before we shot this video. What were you saying about?
Well, I was pointing out that I think worry comes to us all because it's a natural, just a natural part of our human condition.
Yes.
That when we're thinking about, hey, how am I going to pay that bill or buy groceries? Or, hey, I got this health problem. What's going to be the end result of that? How am I going to fix this problem? Oh, man, my kids are in trouble some way. They're in difficulty or maybe they're wayward and I'm worried about them. So it's natural for us as human beings to have worries. And I think God, of course, he knew that is natural for us. I think the sin comes in not when we have a flash momentary concern in life, but when we cling to it. We brag about it. We tell everybody else about it, and it begins to overtake all of our thoughts. And when worry comes in, we know what happens.
Well, worry is one of those things, one of those sins that you feed it. Mm-hmm. And the more you feed it, the bigger it gets. You had like no idea. Yeah, you could have so many different worries if you start feeding it. Hebrews 11:6 says, without faith, it is impossible to please God. And I want to say this. When you let worry take over your life, your faith halts. It stops. Because there's no way, let's think about it. There's no way you can say God is on the throne and he's all powerful and he's all knowing and he's all present and he controls the past, the present, and the future. Yes. He's in time and he's in eternity. But I have a situation that he doesn't understand and I'm going to worry about it.
I trust him, but.
Yes, and a lot of times we say, well, bury those worries, bury them. And the thing, I guess it hit me when I heard this illustration about burying something, burying the hatchet, so to speak. If you bury something, you know where it is. You can go back to it. Right. So for me, worry is like, I want to toss my worries in that sea of forgetfulness. Yes. I want to be reminded that God is truly in charge. That's just not what I want for you. That's what Jesus wants for you. In the Gospel of Luke, in the 12th chapter, Jesus is talking to his disciples. Now, you'd think if there was anybody or any group of people that wouldn't have worry, it would be Jesus's disciples. Right. I mean, they had seen miracles. They had seen the dead raised. They had seen the sick healed. They had seen miracle after miracle after miracle. And you think those would be the guys that would just be full of faith. Right. But that wasn't the case. Jesus tells them this in the Gospel of John, the Gospel of Luke in the 12th chapter, starting at verse 22. Then he said to his disciples, therefore I say to you, do not worry about your life.
Wow, that sums it up, doesn't it?
I can probably stop right there because when he says don't worry about your life, that means everything.
Wow.
Don't worry about your life, what you will eat, nor about the body, what you will put on. Life is more than food, and the body is more than clothing. Consider the ravens, for they neither sow nor reap, which have neither storehouse nor barn, and God feeds them. How much more value are you than the birds? And which of you by worrying can add 1 cubit to his stature? If you then are not able to do the least, why are you anxious for the rest? Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. And yet I say to you, even Solomon in all of his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then God so clothes the grass, which is today in the field and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O you of little faith? And that's something that Jesus said to his disciples. And I think that is a proper thing for us to look at today. We know that that worry is a sin because it will halt our faith. It stops us in our tracks. And what that can be is when we're telling other people. If I go to my wife and say, honey, I'm worrying about this, what that's probably going to do is trigger something in her mind where she says, well, I'll tell you what I'm worried about. And then she does that, and we're feeding off of each other. It is a natural, like you said, it's a natural part to be concerned about something, but what you don't want it to do is get to the point where it halts your faith, where you're thinking that God cannot speak to this, he's not in charge of this, and then it's my job to worry about it.
And I think when someone comes to you and says, I have a worry about this or that, one of the number one and first things that you can do is to say, let's pray about it. Let's take it to God.
Yes.
And let's leave it there. And it's so easy for us, like you said, to dig up the old things and worry about them again and again. But truly, when we can let go and give it to God, and take it to him immediately when we have that problem, and then remind ourselves that, hey, I've given this to God. I've actually in the past taken out my journal and written down a prayer request and the date that I prayed about it, so that if it continued to come up again and again, I could say, go to your journal, look in it, and look at the date you gave this to God. You've already given this to him. Let go. And I think that is a powerful thing that we can do, a practical tool that we can do. Yes. And another thing I've noticed is that we spend a lot of time worrying about temporary problems, things of this earth, problems that are going to resolve themselves one way or the other. And we don't spend a lot of time thinking about maybe eternity or the things of God so much, the things that are truly important. And so why waste so much of our energy on things that are going to pass?
I think I read an article that said like 80% of what we worry about never happens.
I'm not surprised.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
Sherry had mentioned about how it's senseless. It's used energy in an improper way. It's kind of like sitting in a rocking chair. Worry is like sitting in a rocking chair going back and forth. You're moving.
Yes.
But you're just not getting anywhere.
Right.
And that's what worry can do. It can halt your faith. It can hurt your health. Sometimes we can worry about things that never take place. Our mind gets so wrapped around it and we think the worst. And Jesus is telling us the whole time, do not worry. And definitely don't brag about it to each other that you have more worries than the next guy, which makes you maybe more.
You might ask someone to pray for you or with you, but let your faith be strong. Yeah. And I think that when we think about how worry hurts our health, it's not only like our physical health. I've known some people who've let worry over things bring them down physically, they physically break down. But also just like our mental health. I feel like faith is one of the things when we are trusting in Jesus, we're drawing close to him day after day. And sometimes our worries and our troubles actually, I think, are maybe designed in some way to allow us to depend on God more and strengthen our faith. But don't let that begin to break you down in a mental way to where you have a lot of anxieties and stress that can affect every other part of your life. There's lots of different kinds of health, and we've talked about that. And so worry, we don't want it to break down any part of our health.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a good idea to think about the idea of health. And it's so easy to say, don't worry about it. I mean, that's such a patent answer.
Yeah, let's not worry about that right
let's
now.
Not worry about that. No, it is something that you take to the Lord and say, Lord, this is a concern for me. I know you're in charge, and I want to step back and I want to trust you with it. Now, I was thinking about treasures in heaven. I don't know why I was thinking about different videos, and I was thinking about treasures in heaven. And I read an illustration that said that what is a treasure? What's a treasure in heaven? And the guy I read said, your treasures in heaven is when your faith has been tested. That's the reward that you have when you put your faith to work. And it works that way with worry. When worry comes upon us, I don't care if you're young, you're going to be worrying about school or education. You get some age on you, you're worried about this. You start investing money if you have a retirement and you worry about the stock market going under, which it did in 2009. It took about half of what we had back then. But you turn those things over to the Lord. Right. Now, Jesus does something wonderful. I mean, he's always doing something wonderful. But he doesn't just say it's a sin and he leaves it alone. He gives some examples. And he gives 3 examples of how sin is really worthless. It has no purpose. The first one that he gives it is the zoology. He talked about the birds in the air. You know, and he said they do this or they don't do that, but God still looks after them. You know, just look at nature, look at zoology, look at anthropology. You can worry, but you cannot add an inch to your stature because you're going to worry about it. You know, and even zoology, the study of, I guess, of flowers. Is that what zoology is?
I think that's the study of animals.
Okay,
Yeah,
biology. I'm sorry.
Biology. Yeah.
I went to a Baptist college.
That's right.
I didn't know. But biology, when he talked about the lily of the field, you know, how they're beautiful and how God had arranged it, they don't worry about a thing, but God looks after them. And how much more valuable we are than either the birds in the air, you know, the ability for us to change our appearance, or even the flowers that are on the beautiful flowers that are on the earth. It has no purpose. Worry has no purpose. You might be watching this today and you're thinking, man, I'm eat up with worry. I'm consumed about something. Yes. Something's going on in my life and I don't know how it's going to end. Listen, dear friends, none of us really knows how these circumstances are going to end. Right. But we all should know that God is in charge of each and every situation in our lives. It is our job to pray, to take it to the Lord and say, Lord, this is my concern. I want to leave this with you. And Lord, if it comes back up, I'm going to bring it back to you till it stays there, because you are in charge and you do love us and you do have a plan for us. Yes. And I'm not going to let worry separate my faith, you know, from growth, where I get stunted. And then my being stunted might allow somebody else to fall off the same path that I'm on.
I do think that when we have worry, something that we can do that will displace that worry is to worship. And I think when we look at all the wonderful things that God has done for us and how He's saved us and how He's loved us and provided for us in times past, then we can give Him worship and praise and sing even, or do any other kind of act of worship. Then that tends to make our worries diminish. Faith, someone said, you know, faith and worry can exist in the same room, and that's sort of what worship does. It pushes those worries to the back. It allows us to give our praises to a God. He's going to take care of it all. When we list the ways in the past where He has helped us, then it helps us to know that, hey, He's going to take care of this. He's helped me in the past. He's been with my situation since the beginning of time. He's got this under control. And it really diminishes our worry when we experience that. So.
And it's something that we have to apply on a daily basis, because we're all still battling that flesh. Yes. You know, it's not like we achieve it and then we go on to something else. That's when worry or those kind of situations are always going to be around us. But what Sherry said makes so much sense. There is a plan. When you say, hey, I'm worrying about something, this is not healthy for me, what do I do? Sherry summed it up well. You seek the Lord. That's the priority of it. You take it to the Lord with prayer, and you don't worry about the approval of men. Now, I was listening to a podcast on an NFL player, and I don't want to mention his name, but he said something very profound. He's in his latter part of his career, and he said something about criticism. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be an NFL player or a famous person where people just sit back. There's people that get paid. Just think about that. To be on a talk show.
To be the critic.
Yeah, to be the critic. That's all they're paid to do.
I wonder if we could do that job.
I don't want that job. I want to look in the best, not at the worst.
That's right.
But there's people that are paid to say that he can't throw the ball, or he can't run the ball, or he's too big, or he's too small, or whatever it may be.
He's too young.
And this guy said this. He said, you know, I used to take it to heart when people would criticize me. He said, but I come to this place in my life. I'm not going to worry about a critic when that's the person that I wouldn't take counsel from. Now think about that for a minute. Why would you worry about the criticism of someone that you wouldn't have confidence in to give you counsel on how to handle a situation?
That's right.
I thought, man, that's
really
profound.
Good insight.
I wished it was my idea. It's not, but I'm sharing it with you today. Think about that. Why would you worry about what somebody says about you that's critical of you if you would even go to them and ask them a simple, what would you do in this situation, because you have no confidence in them? So to me, that
made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. And we have to be careful about the things that we allow to influence our lives. And this is where social media can also come in. If we see a lot of other people on social media that are having whatever it might be, a lot of success, a lot of, happiness, going on trips, and all the beautiful things that they put forth on social media, it can cause us to become dissatisfied in our own
Yeah, I
lives.
don't have
And
that. Yeah.
yeah, I don't have it. And then how can I get it? And I can't. And then look at my life. It's such a mess. Look at my health. It's such a mess. Nobody knows what I'm going through but me. Oh, woe is me. And next thing you know, you have this mindset that is negative. And so I think a lot of times, even though here we are on social media, I think it's wonderful at times to just shut that off for a little bit and say, I'm going to pull out my Bible. I'm going to get in the Psalms. I'm going to praise God today for what he's doing for me. This worry that I have, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to turn it over. Jesus, if I take this worry back, please remind me, stop me from doing that. As they said, the man said in the scripture, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. That's kind of what you say, Lord, here, I'm going to give this to you. And if I try to take it back, help me not to do that, because I don't want to be a person who worries. I want to be a person who's known for worshiping you and giving you the glory with my life. And so that when people think of me, they don't think of worry, they think of worship.
Right. And I think that you want what you give to God, you want him to keep. What I mean by that is you don't want to give him your worries and then say, Lord, I want to take that back.
Right.
You've had it long enough. Let me have it. It's like chewing gum.
I've done that.
Oh, I do it.
Yeah, all the time. I'm like, hey, look, I'm going to give you my children or whatever, and then I'm wait a minute, Lord, I need to have that back a little bit. I need to fret over that a little bit more.
Let me have that back and kind of chew on it. So you really got to put things in priority, and then you have to recognize that God has a plan for you. And in your plan, we may not know the end result or where it ends up, but we know God never intended for us to have that worry that would manipulate how we live and how we think and how we act. So you got to realize that God has a plan for you and in your life, and worry is not part of that plan. What are you going to do with it, sweet thing? Hot dog. That's what you need to do with it. Well, I think in all things, at the conclusion of this, is that we want to give God the glory, for our lives.
Absolutely.
No matter what's going on, to say, Lord, thank you for what you have done in our lives, my life. And I want to live a life that is full of gratitude, not full of doubt, not full of worry, not full of those kind of concerns that it's going to stop my growth. But Lord, I want to glorify you regardless of the circumstance, because I know you love me and I know you're in charge of all things.
Absolutely. That's right. So don't have that sin that you brag about, worry in your life.
Check that sin out.
Take it out and rip it up.
I'm not going to worry. I'm going to turn it over to you, because I know that that's not what you want for me in my life. You don't want me consumed with worry.
That's right.
Now, this is Vince and Sherry from Pastor Life. Thank you so much for following our channel. If you've not subscribed to Pastor Life, we ask that you would hit that subscribe button. And if you have a positive comment, please leave it. And if you want to share something that the Lord has revealed to you that you've worried about, that you need to turn over to him, please write that in there. We enjoy reading and we try to respond to each and every comment.
I mean, the comments that we read are often encouraging to us and to other people, because I've noticed that numerous people say, I read all the comments under the videos, because they are uplifting and we can help build one another. I think that's what God intended when he put us together as brothers and sisters in Christ, is to encourage and help one another as we go along life's way, because there are going to be times, when you're up and down, and what we need to stay being kind and loving to one another. And that's what I see in the comments. And I really enjoy it.
Thank you. Listen, you don't know, for those that have left positive comments, how much of an encouragement that is for us. So we're grateful for it. We're mindful of it. And we're very appreciative. Again, hope you guys have a great week. Don't let worry be a sin in your life. Kick it out, tear it up, and say, Lord, I'm putting you on the throne. You're on there, and I trust in you in each and every situation.
That's right.
God bless.
See you soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.